Okay, it's 2 o'clock. We are back. And are we back online? We are, right? Yeah. Okay, we are on agenda item 7B2, initiate a rulemaking to amend CCR Title 16, Section 2032.3. Dr. Sullivan.
Thank you. The background material for item B starts on page 3 from our packet yesterday, which discusses items that were addressed at the January 16th, 2024 meeting. There has been a lot of fine tuning since that time. At one point, several sources asked if financial records were part of the medical record. That issue had numerous ramifications, including proprietary issues, FTC concerns about added cost and time to a practice, and the needs of the consumer. After significant stakeholder comments raised during public comment at the April board meeting, the board referred the regulatory proposal back to the MDC. As I mentioned earlier, staff has included the public discussion in that packet. The subcommittee met again with CVMA and CHRB to narrow the request that the subcommittee felt was necessary to protect the public while stipulating that it was not the board's intent to have practices modify or make any changes to their existing bookkeeping methods. It was also noted by CVMA that it did not appear that there was any enabling statute that would allow the board to write regs to address or request a financial record. After considering the totality of the concerns, the subcommittee no longer recommends adding the client payment records to the record-keeping requirement. We removed the proposed subsection O of section 2032.3B1 and K of B2, which stated, and I quote, "Any estimates or invoices provided to the client or their authorized agent and all client payments related to services and treatment provided," unquote. Those we removed. However, the subcommittee believed consumers still should receive a copy of all payments within a reasonable amount of time when requested, and agreed that it had to be in statute. As such, the subcommittee proposes adding Business Professions Code Section 4855.1, which we will discuss a little bit later. With attachment 2, the background material, and attachment 3, which is the amended changes to the April MDC meeting, we can discuss this agenda item, initiate a rulemaking to amend California Code of Regulations, CCR Title 16, Section 2032.3. In addition to the two statements that I've already read that were removed, there was one other phrase that was removed. It was it stated responsible for the animal patient receiving services. That was removed from our original discussion in April. That appeared on the last line of item B. It was duplicative and unnecessary, so it was just removed. But in comparing what we proposed in April to the version that you have in front of you, those are the only changes that I could find. So it is open for discussion. I don't have the verbiage for a motion, so.
Okay, so basically this is related to the 30-day.
Yes, I do. Let me read. Oh, that's for the next one.
Like
No,
going down to it.
Yeah, this is the proposal is accepting the verbiage for 2032.3 that you have in front of you.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions from the board? Any other comments? So then the number 3 is a separate, okay, that's going to be a separate discussion. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So you want me to read this? Ready?
Yes.
Okay, so I am going to make entertain a motion to approve the proposed regulatory text to amend California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 2032.3. If legislative amendments to Business and Profession Code Section 4826.6 and 4855 are enacted to remove the summary requirement, direct staff to submit the regulatory text to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency for review, and if no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make any non-substantive changes to the package, and set the matter for a hearing if requested. If no adverse comments are received during the 45-day comment period and no hearing is requested, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking and adopt the proposed regulations as noticed for California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 2032.3.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Fantastic. Public comment? Moderator, please open it up online.
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on this item, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Jessica?
Dr. Solocito,
Yes.
Dr. Espinoza,
Yes.
Dr. Grant,
Yes.
Ms. Pulowski,
Yes.
Dr. Bradbury.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item is proposed legislation to add Business Professions Code 4855.1. As mentioned previously, the subcommittee believes that the consumer should be able to get a copy of whatever records that the veterinary premises has related to payments made for veterinary services. We also agree that this requirement does not fit into the regulatory framework of written records and therefore needs to be placed in statute. In addition, the subcommittee believes a longer time frame than 5 days to provide copies of payment would help lessen the burden without sacrificing consumer protection, since the payments are not related to the specific treatment or care provided and are not necessarily for continuity of care. Based on the above, the subcommittee proposes adding a new business profession code section as follows. Within 30 days of receiving a written or verbal request by the client or their authorized agent, the veterinary premises shall provide a record of client payments made to the veterinary premises related to the services and treatment provided. After publishing this with the agenda, we received a letter from CVMA with public comment, which is entered into the record today. They added in the first paragraph that I just read, they added after the word, after in the second line, I believe you may have it, it's on your screen. They added the words licensed manager of the veterinary, to then read the licensing manager of the veterinary premises shall. The second addition is, and I will quote, a record of client payments made to the veterinary premises related to services and treatment provided must be maintained for a minimum of 3 years after the animal's last visit, unquote. The subcommittee agrees with this addition. In CVMA's proposal, it was the first sentence of the statute. We believe that their edit would better fit if it was the last sentence, but we agree with the addition. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, Mr. Baxter of the CVMA provided that that language, and I agreed with it. So I'm glad that you guys adopted it. I thought it was a good addition. So in the MDC meeting yesterday, I think again our one public member was concerned about the 30 days. So the background on this, which you went over somewhat, but just for you, Mr. Espinoza, in in practice, some clients, a small percentage, but some consumers have pet insurance, and veterinary bills can be quite expensive, and some of these insurance companies require the consumer to pay for the services first upfront, and then they get reimbursed after the consumer submits the records and invoices. And then they decide how much they're going to pay. So sometimes they're paying a $10,000 bill upfront, and then they're trying as soon as possible to get reimbursed by this company. And when they have attempted to obtain invoices, they're not always successful. And so we've received some complaints from consumers about not being able to get these documents in order to file their insurance claims. So that's one aspect of this. And then the second aspect is when we're trying to have cost recovery, make the client whole after something has happened, and we want to get the invoices, which I think often we're able to obtain after with some effort, but we're able to obtain the invoices at that point. But there's no mechanism in place currently that requires a veterinarian to provide financial records to the client. So this is how this all came to be. Initially, the 5-day, we were saying that was going to just be lumped in with the medical records and have it be a 5-day time frame. And there was, as Dr. Sullivan mentioned, there was quite a bit of concern about how this would be very difficult for some veterinarians to comply with. People in particular who aren't in like a fixed practice and have computerized medical records, because not everybody has that. So I think when the 30 days was thought to, I guess, give people time to do that. But that also, to me, seems like a long time. And I know that Kathy raised that concern as a consumer who had insurance, that is a long time when that's just to start the process of getting reimbursed, and financial being a financial burden on our consumers is something that we should be considering as financial harm if they're not able to be reimbursed in a timely manner. I think there was one comment that this was for consumer convenience, not consumer protection. I guess I would disagree with that comment. I think this is about consumer protection, and I am just, I think I didn't hear the explanation for how we came up with the 30 days, but I didn't know why a 2-week time frame didn't seem like a reasonable enough time frame. So yeah.
So 30 days was random. Okay. However, I think we should note here that the client already received receipts. So this is a backup.
Not necessarily. I mean, we heard testimony at one of the other in public comment, another meeting or last meeting, that some veterinarians don't provide any receipt at all.
Okay. Okay.
I'm
That was my assumption when I was saying it, and that's what they're saying, is that it's not necessarily, we assume that's what's happening. And this is a backup, but it's not. So can we maybe split the difference and say 21 days? It's random.
And why is 14 days not?
I
okay?
mean, no, I'm just saying, I'm again playing.
Yeah.
I get it. It's
Well, I just, I'm thinking about somebody who needs to try and pay their rent. And they've put out this huge thing and they're, so I just, Dr. Solicito?
I just, I guess I'm having difficulty accepting the owners not being responsible enough to get a receipt when you make payment. Because people are not going to keep records for you. It would be like, but you as the person who's disbursing the payment, you should be at least be responsible for that. And then all of a sudden, yeah, unless of course they lost it.
Right. Well, that's what,
it is.
if they, I mean, what if you did, I mean, I will admit I have lost my receipts and I call and ask for them to email them to me. That
Mhm.
happens all the time to me.
Yeah.
So, but if I didn't have that option, if I weren't working with people who did that, then, if I needed some,
And then that's sometimes, I think that's what we're saying though, is that some of it has to come on the consumer. And so we're putting a burden on the veterinarian because of the consumer. The consumer had it. And now the veterinarian is burdened that they have to get these receipts to them because the consumer wasn't responsible to do it. So, I mean, it goes back and forth.
well, there's no guarantee they're getting the receipt. Jessica?
So hopefully they are getting a receipt. There's no statutory requirement that they are provided invoices and receipts. I think it's good for everybody to provide that, but there's no requirement. I just want to caution, just keep in mind, we're here for consumer protection. So that should be the forefront. I think that there could be times where you have emotional consumers as well. There's something could be really wrong with their animal and may not even think about getting the payment because that's the last thing that they're thinking of and could leave. I just want to focus on consumers and protecting them.
I have a question, please.
Yeah.
So in the absence of proposed 4855.1, there is no mechanism that mandates the consumer that the veterinarian provides this information, the financial information to the consumer. Assuming they got the receipt or they lost it or they never got it, this empowers the consumer to have the ability to go to the veterinarian and say, provide me the financial information because I may need it for insurance or what have you. And the 30-day agreed upon timeframe was just the subject of consensus because there's no real understanding. There's no real right answer. It's more what's the best we can do that both balances the burden on the veterinarian, but also provides the consumers a mechanism to obtain this information. Is that a fair
That's
assessment?
exact. That's perfect. Yeah. Okay, so how does everybody feel about because I don't want to make a big point of the 30 days. I was putting my mind out, my thoughts about it being a long period of time to, if everybody is fine with 30 days, looks like everybody is, then I don't want to believe. Okay. All right, well, would somebody go ahead and make a motion then?
I'll bring the motion.
Fantastic. Your first motion. I think you have to read it. So it's on page 6 of the meeting notes. It says action requested. It says the board is asked to entertain a motion. And so then you just say, I'll make a motion to.
I'll make a motion to submit to the California State Legislature a legislative proposal to add Business and Professions Code section 4855.1 regarding client payment records.
I second the motion.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah. Any public comment? Moderator, would you open it up to the folks online, please?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is a moderator. I see no requests for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you so much. Jessica?
Dr. Solocito,
Yes.
Mr. Espinoza,
Yes.
Dr. Grant,
Yes.
Ms. Pulowski, Dr. Bradbury.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Sullivan. Oh, more. We have 7C. I'm like, wait a minute. This is agenda item 7C, recommendation on legislative proposal to amend BPC section 4809.7 regarding inspection authority.
Long day. No, it's mine. Okay. 4809.7. Christy Pulowski gave this report, which was referred to her committee from the board's strategic plan to address BPC section 4809.7. The code mandates that 20% of veterinary premises be inspected on an annual basis. The subcommittee presented the history of the obstacles of this goal of staffing, funding, and post-inspection follow-up. These obstacles made this goal impossible. In their analysis, they looked at other state boards and other DCA boards that had inspections, and none had this onerous goal. Then there was discussion of I need some help. Then there was discussion of a new app to improve the efficiencies of all stages of the inspection process and post-inspection compliance follow-up that is scheduled to launch at the end of September this year. It was noted that this was a competitive grant application that Jessica and her staff applied for and won, a $600,000 grant, and we are now seeing the results of that work. The subcommittee met on June 25th to review the reports from the previous subcommittee members, and the progress of the board has made in inspections since the inspection and enforcement units merged in fiscal year 21-22. They included a graph that is in your packet that demonstrated that with the initial unit merge, the board increased its inspection by 182% for fiscal year 22-23 and 343% for years 23-24. And with the new app, they believe that even more efficiencies will be successful. However, the 20% is still not realistic. During the meeting, the subcommittee also discussed the board's strategic plan objective to remove the 20% mandate and the potential amendments to section 4809.7. In addition to striking the percent mandate as the board requested, the subcommittee proposes adding, and I quote, "and announced," unquote, to the statute to clarify the board performs both announced and unannounced inspections. As such, the subcommittee proposes the following amendment. The board shall establish a regular inspection program that will provide for random, unannounced and announced inspections of veterinary premises. To provide assurance to the public, the California State Legislature and stakeholders that inspections of veterinary premises will continue to remain a priority and continue to be tracked, the subcommittee is considering adding an inspection performance measure goal that will be regularly monitored and reported at every board meeting. The subcommittee also will evaluate ways to prioritize random routine inspections. This information can be added to the board's sunset review report by the October 24 2024 meeting to further support the legislative proposal. In addition, the subcommittee has been assigned the following strategic plan objectives. 1, update the self-inspection checklist to help licensees remain in compliance with regulations. And 2, explore solutions to clarify the board's authority to inspect board facilities.
Okay. So we're talking, when it says to add a, what is the words that you were using? My mind is starting. Yes, thank you. A performance measure, those lovely things. So, so the subcommittee would then come up with, we're going to try and do so many % or, yeah, can you expand on that?
Yeah, so as the members, not the newer members, but the more seasoned members may recall, there's certain performance measures that we regularly report on. These are set internally by the EO at the time and staff. But these performance measures are sent out, both for licensing and enforcement, and they're regularly reported on with DCA and all the board meeting materials. And so it would be something that we're looking at maybe including in there to just like all of our other performance measure goals to regularly report on, but not necessarily be in a statute that says we have to do this mandate, because we don't have that for anything else that we do.
Okay, any other questions? Would anybody like to make a motion?
Yeah, I can do this one because I
Thank
know
you.
it. So let's see. I'd like to make a motion to submit to the California State Legislature the above legislative proposal to amend BPC Section 4809.7 regarding veterinary premises inspection authority.
I'll second it. Okay, public comment. Moderator, would you open it up, please?
Thank you. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you so much. Okay, Jessica.
Dr. Solocito,
Yes.
Mr. Espinoza,
Yes.
Dr. Grant,
Yes.
Ms. Pulaski,
Yes.
Dr. Bradbury,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, we're moving on to another very exciting topic. The update and discussion on pending regulations, agenda item 8. Justin Sotelo. Hello. Great, how are you? Good.
Test. Some help too here. Justin Sotelo, Policy Specialist for the Board. Agenda item 8, this is update and discussion on pending regulations. As noted in the memo, there are 5 rulemaking packages listed here, 4 of which are pending in the rulemaking process. The last one we just discussed under agenda item 7B, under the records agenda item, which I'll get to in just a bit here. So these are updates since the April 2024 meeting. On page 1, the first item listed here is our drug compounding rulemaking package, which you've seen a couple of times. You can see a summary of what the changes will do to the regulations. I'll just note that at the April 2024 meeting, the board rescinded its prior motion approving proposed amendments to the regulatory text and approved updated regulatory text with some minor changes recommended at that meeting. This package is currently being prepared by staff for the initial phase of the rulemaking process. Moving on to page 2, the second item there, VCPR definitions and RBT tasks updates. Noted here in the memo, this package was pulled from agency's review in October of 2023 due to the enactment of Senate Bill 669, which covers the same subject matter as the board's proposal. We are currently, this package is kind of on hold. We do have a meeting scheduled with Regulations Council and Board Council to kind of reevaluate the proposal as it is in light of SB 669. And then we'll determine next steps on this proposal and provide an update at our next meeting. The next item at the bottom of page 2, another familiar item here, minimum standards for alternate veterinary premises, which is kind of being taken kind of hand in hand with the next item on page 3, Title 24 veterinary facilities. Again, I won't summarize what those proposed changes do. They're provided there on page 3. But the update on this is that at the April 2024 meeting, the board rescinded its prior motions approving proposed amendments to this text and approved the updated and final text as of now, along with additional changes approved by the MDC. Board staff has prepared the initial rulemaking package for the initial phase of the rulemaking process, and this package is currently being reviewed by DCA Budget Office and Regulations Council. And that same update applies to the next item, veterinary facilities, Title 2024. So this was also approved at the April meeting. The initial rulemaking package has been submitted to the DCA Budget Office and Regulations Council. As we noted before, the process for amending Title 24 regulations, it's maybe a similar process, but there are some differences. Title 16 proposals, as you know, get approved by the Office of Administrative Law. Anything amending Title 24 regulations gets reviewed and approved by the California Building Standards Commission. So that'll be a new kind of process that that I haven't experienced, but I don't know if Elizabeth, you have any additional comments on that process? I know we were talking about it a bit yesterday.
No, nothing to add. It will be my first time going through the process as well, but it hopefully should be all resolved by the end of the year.
Jessica, no, we're good? Okay. And then the final package mentioned on page 4 is the one you just reviewed pertaining to records. So that would be a proposal to amend 2032.3. So I won't reiterate what we just went over, but that proposal was just approved, and will, although that's contingent upon the legislative proposal also being approved. So I guess we'll be anticipating that that's going to be the case, and then be moving forward with this regulatory proposal as well. And then the attachment provided to the memo is just the spreadsheet that you guys see for each meeting, just noting any changes since the April meeting. Those are noted in red text. So unless you have any questions, that concludes my presentation.
Great. Anybody have any questions? Nope. Okay. Public comment? Moderator, would you open it up, please?
Thank you. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public has a comment on agenda item 8, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Justin.
You're welcome.
Are you going to be
I think I'm up for the next item as well.
okay? Yeah, agenda item 9, the update discussion on the 2023 to 24 legislation. Go ahead.
Okay, so 3 areas we're covering here. Initially under sub-item A, priority legislation for board consideration. And then under item B, other legislation that the board is monitoring. And then under item C, a legislative proposal before you for consideration. So I'll start on page 1 of the memo, go through the priority legislation. The first bill on the list here is AB 814. This bill pertaining to animal physical rehabilitation. This was a 2023 bill that would have authorized licensed physical therapists to be registered with the board, this board, as registered animal physical therapists to provide animal physical rehabilitation under the supervision of a veterinarian. The board opposed this bill last year, April 2023, testified in opposition to the bill in July 2023. More recently, in June of this year, the board submitted another opposition letter to Assembly Member Lowenthal, along with its previous opposition letters, which are provided to you as attachment 1. And lastly, on June 27th of this year, the board was notified that the bill's hearing before the Senate Business Professions and Economic Development Committee was canceled at the request of the author. Because July 3rd was the last day for bills to be heard in policy committees in the second house. If they're not heard by that date, then they are deemed dead for the year. So I don't know, Jessica, do you have any additional updates on that item? Nope. Okay, moving on. Item 2, AB 2133. This deals with RVTs. Would have proposed to authorize RVTs to perform neuter surgery on male domestic cats under the direct supervision of a veterinarian. As you recall, there was extensive discussion on this bill at the last meeting, the April meeting. The board ultimately took an opposed position on the bill, outlining its significant concerns with animal patient harm and other implementation issues. That opposition letter is attached as attachment 2. As of May 16th, this bill was held under submission, and I don't have any additional updates on this. It's dead. Okay.
So when you say it's dead, that means there's no chance of it coming back next year.
No, that's not what that means.
Okay, it's dead for the year.
It's dead because we're in a 2-year session.
Yeah,
And so it just was not successful at the end of the 2-year session.
Okay, so we may see this again next year. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to item 3 on page 3 of your memo, AB 2265, dealing with euthanasia. During the April meeting, the board discussed the impacts of this bill, including fee impacts to shelters, shelter posting requirements regarding animals scheduled for euthanasia, and changes to the Hayden Act. The Hayden Act impacts shelter funding, imposes requirements on shelters for animals deposited in their care, and sets euthanasia requirements. The board took a watch position on this bill in April. And this bill too, as of May 16th, is held under submission. So I don't have any additional also dead. Okay, moving on to the 4th item, page 4 of your memo, AB 2269. This pertained to board member qualifications, public members. I believe this bill is also dead, right? Yeah, the hearing was canceled as the July 1 hearing was canceled, so this bill. And I believe that pertains to item 5 as well. Okay, so AB 2862, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'd just like to make a note about number 5 on page 5, AB 2862. It's highly likely that this is coming back next year, so you may want to just take a look at this and take a position so that you can be part of the conversation with the author's office and stakeholders to try to resolve some of the concerns that are noted here.
Okay. And can we back up to number 4 also? So it says that the hearings canceled, which is different than the held under submission. But that one may come back also next year. Is that true? Because I had concerns with 2269. Yeah. Jessica?
So yes, it's possible for any of these bills to come back. I would caution taking a position at this point because these bills are dead and we don't know what anything is going to look like going forward. And if things are introduced, we are having a meeting in January to talk about any bills that are introduced. So I would hesitate against positions now, knowing these bills are dead and it could come back in a different form later on. I mean, it's similar to animal physical rehab or anything like that. And unless you're going to take positions on those bills now, or not knowing what the bills are going to look like when they're introduced in January, that's my concern.
That sounds great, but the AB 814, that was the end of a 2-year cycle.
All of it is the end of the 2-year cycle. So the 2-year cycle starts again in January.
Okay, so they may be reintroduced as a new bill.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess I would go with not taking positions at this time because of they do seem to be very different when they return. But I understand and appreciate your input on that. Okay.
Okay. So moving on to item 6, page 7 of the memo. Uh, This bill pertains to decline, and I believe this one would also be deemed dead at this point. Is that correct? Yes. Moving on to item 7 on page 8 of your memo, SB 1478. This bill pertains to RVTs. The board took a support position on this bill at the April 2024 meeting. This bill would authorize the order established by the veterinarian that authorizes an RVT to perform animal health care services as described, to include, among other things, information pertaining to time periods by which an impounded animal is required to be assessed at intake and monitored while in the custody of an agency, protocols to address the treatment of common medical conditions encountered in impounded animals, and communication requirements between the RVT and the supervising veterinarian. Again, the board voted unanimously to support this bill. That position letter is attached as attachment 3. And I believe the latest update on this is that it has passed through the Assembly Appropriations Committee and was ordered to consent calendar.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so moving on to item B under this agenda item, other monitored board legislation. I'm at the bottom of page 8 on the memo, AB 3029. The board took a support position on this bill at the April meeting. And again, this pertains to controlled substances. And that position letter of support is attached as attachment 4. So this bill would add xylazine to Schedule 3 of the California Uniform Controlled Substances Act, except in certain circumstances relating to veterinary use, only after xylazine is placed on Schedule 3 of the Federal Controlled Substances Act. There was a hearing regarding this bill on July 2nd, and it appears that there's another one scheduled for August 5th. So those are the updates on that bill. Okay. Moving on to item 2 under B, SB 1233. This bill pertains to the University of California, Western University, pertains to spay and neuter techniques. The board took a support position on this bill in April, at the April meeting. This bill, and that support letter is attached as attachment 5. This bill has passed through the Appropriations Committee, I believe, and to consent calendar. I don't know Jessica, you have any updates on that one?
No, it's going through really well. And right now they're I believe in recess or about to break for recess, but it's expected to go through.
Okay. Moving on to page 10, item 3, SB 1459. This bill pertains to animal shelters. The board took a watch position on this bill in April. And it appears that this bill has passed through the Assembly Appropriations Committee. So that's my update for that bill. Moving on to page 11, item 4, SB 1502. This bill also pertains to xylazine. The board took a support position on this bill in April. And that support letter is attached for reference as attachment 6. There was a hearing held on July 2nd, and currently this bill is being held under submission. Dead? It's dead. Because of the July 3rd date. Okay, moving on to the last item, page 11. SB 1526. This is the omnibus bill for DCA. The board took a support position on this bill in April. There was a hearing on July 2nd. And again, this bill, among other things, will do what's mentioned here in the summary. So it renames the Veterinary Medicine Practice Act, the board, and the Veterinary Fund, respectively, the California Veterinary Medicine Practice Act and the California Veterinary Medical Board and the California Veterinary Medical Board Contingent Fund. The bill also changes instances of the word oral to verbal in BPC sections 4826.7, 4857, and 4886. This bill appears to have passed through the Appropriations Committee as well, and that's the latest update I have for that item. So I think that concludes items A and B, unless there are any questions on those bills listed in the memo.
I don't see any. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great. So we'll move on to item C on page 12 of the memo. Jessica, were you going to present these? Or do you want me?
Actually go to the legislative proposal language so they can see the language up there.
So this proposal would amend section 4845 of the BPC. It would add section 4882 and would amend section 4887. I can just read the memo into the record, or unless you'd like to summarize these.
Sure. So for the first one, amend BPC section 4845. The main thing we're doing there is adding veterinary assistant controlled substance permit holders and removing unnecessary and redundant language that could cause confusion. Because right now the VCSPs are not mentioned in 4845. And I don't think that was intended when VCSPs were created. I think it was just missed in that statute itself. I wasn't here at the time, but when they added VCSPs in other areas, I don't think it was included in here. So we added that in there. So that's the first piece of it. And two, under Business Profession Code Section 4882 to authorize stipulated settlements without requiring commencement of formal disciplinary proceedings under the APA. So this was as a result of the directors, both her data work group, which I'm on, and then the Enlightened Enforcement Project, which I co-chair with. During a lot of those meetings, it was discovered that there's some programs who have the statutory authority to enter into stipulated settlements prior to going to the Attorney General's office and doing the whole transmittal process, which all of us know is very lengthy and very costly for both the board and the respondents. There's times where we'll have a case or multiple cases against a respondent, and the respondent has reached out and said, can we just go into a stipulated settlement now and in probation rather than go through the whole process of the accusation and that whole process under the APA. Or they just want to surrender their license. They want to take a step back. They want this over with. They want to just surrender, and we don't have the authority to do that. We have to transmit to the Attorney General's office right now and do that pleading and go through that whole process. So what this would do would allow us the authority, and it would require the respondent to agree to it, obviously, and then the board approve it. But it would allow us to enter into that stipulated settlement without doing that whole process. So it saves a lot of time, a lot of money for both sides, and it ensures the consumer protection faster for consumers.
And other boards do this.
Yeah, there's at least two boards and a bureau who has the authority, and that's when it came out that they had that. Then we are suggesting now that other boards look at implementing the same language.
Great.
And then the last one under 487 regarding petitions for reinstatement or modification for early termination of probation. So in that one, hold on, sorry, I'm scrolling. Oh, it's on the screen. So if you can actually scroll down a little more, because we are adding the permit holder there and registration, but the main one was, if you could scrolling. That, yeah, we're adding E. So this is putting that time limit on when they have to satisfy those conditions for the petition, because there's sometimes right now where if they say they petition for reinstatement and they haven't met the conditions, like the condition would be that they have to do a course or they have to pay a fee before they do that. And then if they never do it, this just stays open the whole time. So this would allow us to give them the year time frame. And then if they don't do it within that year, we can close it and we don't have to continuously monitor it. So that's what that changes. Go ahead.
Under subdivision C.
Yeah.
This proposal would also remove the existing requirement that there be a vote of 5 members of the board to reinstate a revoked license. I mean, we've been really struggling with board membership lately, as many boards are. So we're just recommending to remove this requirement because there really doesn't seem to be any necessity for it.
And that would just be what we do with all of our other motions. It would be a majority of the quorum.
Okay. Any questions? Comments? Great. Well, can we get a motion?
It's on page 14.
I'm there if you need me to.
Yeah.
I make a motion to include in the board's 2025 Sunset Review Report a recommendation to the California State Legislature, the legislative proposal to amend BPC Section 4845 and 4887 and add Section 4882 as shown in Attachment 7.
I second the motion.
Public comment? Moderator, would you open it up, please?
Thank you, Madam President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and will give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Dr. Solocito,
Yes.
Mr. Espinoza,
Yes.
Dr. Grant,
Yes.
Ms. Pulaski,
Yes.
Dr. Bradbury,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you, Justin.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Wow, all right. We are on to agenda item 10. As I mentioned earlier, Holly wasn't able to join us today, so we are going to be skipping 10A and going to 10B. The report from Anna Stiles from Western University of Health Sciences. Sorry, Western University. I always just call it Western. So, Anna.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Trying to see if I can get my video started here. One sec. So you all actually know what I look like. Okay. Hello. Good afternoon, members of the board. I just kind of wanted to start first with a note that we have Western U has hired a new assistant professor of food animal medicine. I know that the realm of food animal medicine is of concern and importance in terms of the veterinary shortage. So I know that the university and the College of Veterinary Medicine is trying to kind of step up their presence in that area. We've hired a new assistant professor of food animal medicine. And we are partnering with UC Davis in a study looking at veterinary students' decisions to go into or not go into large animal medicine. So in a future report, I can follow up on what that survey finds. In other news, back in April, we hosted our annual open house event, where thousands of members of the public came through and participated in a vast array of activities that kind of shed light on the veterinary field, just animal careers in general, and then specifically veterinary school and our curriculum. We got a lot of positive feedback from that. Another outreach or like community engagement event was a like pre-health careers panel of 9 Western U veterinary students at Mount San Antonio College, or Mount SAC, in May. And they just kind of discussed their journeys into veterinary medicine, and it included both the undergraduate students and high school students. And so then going into the summer, we had 109 students graduate on May 17th. And so far reported at least 20 of those students are going to go into internship positions, including small animal rotating and emergency room internships. No others have been reported, but it is possible that they are out there. And then, so our research office is kind of going through a revamp process of sorts, as Dr. Yvonne Dreschler became the acting associate dean of research this year. So she helped organize our annual research day. That was at the end of the school year. It highlights the importance of research and the kind of spectrum that exists for how veterinarians can participate in research. And though there aren't, classes on campus over the summer, the veterinary summer research program is in full swing. I am participating in it. And so we have about like 30 students who are participating in projects. I think about half of those are full-time grant-funded research projects. We now have a NIH-funded training grant. We have students working not only with our own CVM faculty, but also kind of interprofessional collaboration with mentors from like our School of Pharmacy, dental medicine, and then we also have some students working with mentors at City of Hope for like cancer research, and also UC San Diego, and their Center for Veterinary Sciences and Comparative Medicine. And then finally, well, actually, second to finally, we had Dr. Maria Fahey. I think I'm pronouncing her name right. She is a professor of small animal surgery, and recently she became the first Western U faculty member to join the editorial board for the Journal of Veterinary Medical Education, which is really exciting. And she also was elected to be secretary of the Academy of Veterinary Educators. I think, you know, in our 25-year history, you know, our approach to veterinary education is something we're always working on and we're proud of. So it's exciting that she like has been recognized with these positions and her like her own commitment to veterinary education. And then finally, as of July 15th, Dr. Texas is no longer interim dean, but now officially dean of the College of Veterinary Medicine. He's been interim dean since 2022, and now he is officially our dean. So we look forward to kind of welcoming him into that more official permanent role and moving forward in this new era. And that concludes my report.
Great, thank you so much. And that is exciting about the kind of the focus on food animal there. I think any help we can get. It sounds like Western is getting a lot of respect and as it should. So it's definitely when I was it's hard to believe, but when I was in veterinary school, I believe it was just starting up there, and that seems like just yesterday, but it was a long time ago now. Um, and yeah, it was a big question as to how the new approach to teaching was going to work out, and it's obviously working out quite well. So that's great. Any questions or comments from board members? I don't see any. Okay. Any public comment in the room? Moderator, would you open it up to those online?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 10B, please either raise your hand or write comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and will give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Great, thank you. So Anna, I think what I'd like to try and do from between now and the next time is maybe get you connected either with CDFA or Jessica will help work on that so that maybe as I think you had mentioned there's some collaboration with UC Davis in trying to determine how students are making decisions, and in that outreach, it'd be interesting to know if the VML LRP is being discussed at the during the outreach, if students know about it, and anything you can report back to us in October would be really appreciated.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I will follow up, like I said, with that survey that's going on. And I'd love to connect with, I think it was Dr. Marshall who was
Yeah.
talking earlier,
Yeah.
or anyone from that department, especially with the loan repayment plan and how to, yeah, make sure that that's discussed earlier on as opposed to when you're leaving vet school. But I'd love to connect with them on that and come back in October with some more insight.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you next time. Okay, next up is, I believe, my report, which isn't that exciting. Let me just, sorry. So really, um, the main things that we've been working on as the executive team were with 814, which now is dead. So that was exciting. So Jessica and I met with Sarah Mason, who's the staff director, and Alyssa Silva, who is a consultant for the Senate BMP and Economic Development. Christina De Caro from CVMA, and then Jason Kaiser from the executive officer from the Physical Therapy Board were also on the call, and I think it was Christina who maybe organized it, and we are so grateful for her collaboration. It was interesting. This was before when it had been put back on the agenda, and Sarah and Alyssa wanted to meet with us to present some changes that they had made to try and make it, they felt like it would make it more simple, I believe, and they, it sounded like worked quite a lot on it. They completely reworked the bill, so the language was very different than what we had all been, what we all read. It really put most of the changes into the Physical Therapy Practice Act. We, I think all of us had some significant concerns with that, but we definitely appreciated their intent to try and streamline things. As you all know, the bill died, but we expect that it will be meeting again with them. They've think requested a meeting, and we'll be likely discussing this again in the fall in some context. So after that, we got to, Jessica and I met with our newest board member for onboarding, which was a great conversation. And we're, as I said, excited to have Mr. Espinoza on board. And then the only other real meeting was Jessica and I attended the recent Board of Governors meeting with the CVMA, and just presented some ongoing topics. So that's not a very exciting report, but that's it. So anybody have any questions? All right. Any public comment? I'll try and make it more exciting next time. We'll have the AAVSB to talk about next time. Moderator, would you open it up to the folks online?
Thank you. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 11, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you, moderator. Next up is agenda item number 12, the registered veterinary technician report with Ms. Pulowski. Just to let people know sort of what the plan is after this. I think we'll probably move on and move to agenda item 17 and just start moving through the executive management reports since we have gotten through today's material efficiently. So
Okay, so I had a VT&E meeting. As most of you know, I'm on the VT&E committee. So in June, and it was a
wait, can you explain what that
yes,
is
the
for our new
veterinary
board members?
technician national exam, which is part of the AAVSB. And we met in June to review to do.
Sorry, just for Mr.
Yes.
Espinoza, it's the national exam required for RVTs, are registered veterinary technicians. In order to get licensed, they have to pass this national exam.
I'll if I have some things written down, if I will try to clarify too, so that because this is going to get interesting. So in June, we met to do item writing, and it's done. We basically review the test once a year. This was my first in-person meeting on the committee. And so in attendance was a psychometrician and a senior test developer, both from outside entities, and they're there to assist us in exam development. So during this process, since it was my first time, I did my best to kind of sit back and take it all in. And we've had other meetings quarterly, but they are done virtually. So I've met people in a virtual way, but not in person. There were quite a few new members on the committee, and so I felt that there was a nice representation. However, I quickly realized that I needed to speak up, and I know that's a shock for most of you. Many items were not relevant in practice, and because there is like confidentiality to this meeting, I have to speak in generalities. I will just to let you know. There are numerous educators who feel very strongly about testing on items related to what is being taught in school. And I was also told that we need to test for those who go into lab animal and research. And so, although I believe there should be questions related to those schools, it should be relevant to the number of licensed technicians that go into these fields. And so I also explained to the educators that I valued the information that they were teaching in schools and that they were giving the students a foundational knowledge. And so those students would be able to build upon that knowledge, but many of the items that we were discussing were never done in practice, and some were even outdated. And so, needless to say, this sparked a very lengthy conversation, which we were very timed. We had a limited amount of time, and this was probably a 45-minute discussion. I was so extremely thankful for the support that I had in the room, because I didn't know if I was going to get that. And after this discussion, I was reminded privately that there are those who are trying to sneak into our profession through on-the-job training, and I needed to be very careful. So I respectfully reminded this individual that I was from California 3 times during this private conversation. So I just believe that overall I'm proud of how I represented myself in California RVTs, and I look forward to continuing to improve the conversation.
Can you explain why?
Oh yes, I'm
being
sorry I tried.
California.
So in California, we have those on the job training RVTs that they were trying to protect the test from. And it was becoming very apparent. So these educators are very much about testing for their foundational knowledge. And so they don't believe in testing and having on-the-job RVTs, as they call them. And we have in California an alternate path. And that alternate path does not require, even though we have an educational component, they do not believe that RVTs should be able to become RVTs and be able to sit for the VT&E, the national exam, through just on-the-job training. There are states that don't have any educational component and that they can take the national exam through just on-the-job training. And there are people that are on the VT&E committee who just want to protect it heavily and do not want this on-the-job training at all.
So Christy, how many, were there people who, on the committee that were in support of the alternative pathways? Other than you? Okay.
Yeah, it was hard. It's hard to say. I was supported by the psychometrician and the title, the staff and I was very much supported by the AAVSB staff too. I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised by that. And the other person from California.
Okay.
So.
Dr. Solcito.
I just have a question. In your lengthy discussion, was there an explanation as to why they would not want an alternate pathway, or what would be what was the principle other than it has to be our way? Or
Oh, they don't say that in public. They don't say that in the meeting. It doesn't come out in the meeting that they don't want on the job. That's private. So in the lengthy discussion, what was discussed is the foundational knowledge. And so in the meeting and in the lengthy discussion, it's more about what is done in practice. So that's what I was fighting. What if we're looking at a test question, is this done in practice? And the answer is no. So if it's not done in practice, how can we test for it? And that means that we can't test for it because it's not on the job training. So if it's not on the job training, we can't test for it.
is there an opportunity to review the foundational knowledge list?
Yes, there's plenty of questions for that. Absolutely. And even, but that also applies to on the job training. So they do overlap. Absolutely.
Mhm.
There are so many, but that also applies. So there's a lot of lab animal and research, right? And my question was, we need to be careful. Like, what's the percentage of people? And it's, well, they're going into lab animal. I'm like, yes, but what are the percentage of technicians that are going into this? And when they do, they're being taught what they need to do at that lab. And so the percentage of questions should directly correlate to the number of questions that we ask. So if 3% of, and I don't know the number, if 3% of our candidates are going into lab animal, then 3% of our questions should be whatever it is, or I think it's like less than 1%. And so I just don't see that reasoning.
Yeah, so the issue that we're having and why this is even coming up in our meeting is that we rely on this national test for anybody who applies for the registration as a veterinary technician in California has to take this test first and pass this test before they can become registered here. And this test is controlled by the AAVSB. So they own the test. And so they are basically in control of that very important step. And so there's concerns if they aren't in support of one of our pathways to becoming a registered veterinary technician. There's concerns that some opportunities for Californians are going to be taken away if that's our only pathway to registration here. Jessica, do you have anything to add?
Maybe just to clarify, so we don't have solely on the job training, it's on the job training plus some level of education. And that education doesn't have to be from accredited program. And part of CVTA, that's the accrediting body of programs, many of those representatives are on this VT&E committee. So those representatives are from the accredited schools. And so when you don't have any other perspectives on this committee, they're all for accredited programs. But if there's other pathways that are not from accredited programs, you can see how they might not like that. And they, in their view, and what I've been told multiple times by various individuals, is that the concern is that those RVTs who have not gone through an accredited program are somewhat lesser, and they're a danger to consumers and they're a danger to patients. Not recognizing that there's a lot of states who have allowed this pathway for years, for several years, for decades. And the states who don't allow that pathway have some sort of reciprocity to where if they're licensed in one state, they can go ahead and get licensed in that state. So you actually have a lot of individuals who never came from an accredited program that are practicing. And there's no real data to show any correlation that if you graduate from an accredited program versus an alternate pathway, that leads to more consumer harm, no increase in consumer complaints. And so for someone who on the VT&E committee that is against alternate pathways to then tell Christy that the dangers of alternate pathways, there's a disconnect there. So it's a challenge because there's a lot of statements being made more based in fear rather than fact, and without any documented consumer harm or additional patient harm. We don't have the opinion that these individuals who have been doing this for their whole career are a danger to consumers or patients.
And I was informed. So just my background is that because I'm old, I was licensed a long time ago and I did go to school, but my school existed before accreditation even existed. So, because that was so long ago. And so I cannot sit for the VT&E. I am not eligible. I would not be eligible. And there's this little grandfather period there. There's this period where because of the way they wrote things, I could not sit because I'm not eligible. So I am considered, even though I went to school, I am considered an alternate path candidate. I was told that, I don't know that I told you this. That is the reason I was picked for this committee. There were 3 of us that were picked for this committee for that very reason, to get a different perspective. They finally chose us for these reasons, and they are trying, but it's causing conflict in the committee.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's great.
For AAVSB, it's great.
Yeah.
It is great. And I'm very, very happy to hear it.
That's good. Okay. Any questions? All right. Public comment. Moderator, please open it up.
Thank you, Madam President. I am opening up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 12, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or simply raise your hand. Again, we have a 3-minute time limit. I'll give a 15-second warning. And we do have a request for comment from Nancy Ehrlich. Nancy, you should be able to unmute yourself. There you go.
Hi there. I recall that the Veterinary Medical Board used to, when reporting on examinations, list the schools, the pass rates. I can't find that in the recent information from the board, but that's something that you used to at least publish. I think that would be very useful because, as I recall, the alternate route candidates did quite well and better than some of the schools. So I think that might be something that you want to do again.
All right, this is the moderator. I see no further requests for public comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Why did we stop doing that? Was that because we stopped doing the accreditation? Or not accreditation,
So
but
that ties back to this requirement that the board has regulations to approve these alternate route programs. And there was a subcommittee that did this research to see, because the board never actually fully implemented that. When they did the history, the board back in 2012 approved one program. All the others didn't go through any process and were being regulated under various other entities in order to operate in California. And so this is part of the issues where the board had asked to actually remove that authority. We're going to ask for it in our sunset bill to stop tracking. But what that report, it caused a lot of confusion because it made it look like the board was regular monitoring and approving schools when we weren't. We haven't approved a school since 2012, and it's only good for 2 years. So right now there are no programs operating that are approved by the board. So it's not really in our purview to be reporting on things that we don't have any authority over. But that doesn't mean, as a reminder, that they're not being regulated by others, because there are multiple other entities that are overseeing those programs.
yeah, no, I remember being concerned about some of the programs, but that was about it. Okay. Well, with that, I think we're going to take a 15-minute break, and then we're going to come back and do the administrative reports. Okay, we are back. So we are moving on to agenda item 17, the executive management reports. And I believe we are starting with Matt.
Yes, hello, thank you. I will be presenting the administration report and the licensing and examination report. So we'll just start with some staff updates. In May, the board welcomed back Ontu Lee as an enforcement analyst. She was previously an enforcement analyst with the board in 2016. She rejoins the board from UC Davis, where she was a staff research associate responsible for evaluating abnormal behavior in non-human primates. Don't ask me any details about that because I don't know. But Ontu's been hitting the ground running, and we're really excited to have her back on the team. It's been positive. In June, Michael Thompson left the board, and we just wish her the best of luck in the next phases of her career. We also hired a seasonal clerk in June, Amelia Gutierrez. She's new to state service, and she'll be working with the enforcement unit on complaint intake. As of July 5th, Kim Phillips Francis elected to step down from her role as the administration, licensing, and examination program manager, and she's rejoining the enforcement team as an enforcement analyst. She's welcome back to the team, and her passion in enforcement will continue. The board also, we're continuing to work with the DCA's Office of Human Resources to fill outstanding vacancies. We currently have 2 manager positions vacant. I don't know if this is still accurate, but 1 AGPA and 2 OTs at the time of the memo. We've attached the organizational chart for reference. In staff training, we are making an effort to meet DCA's objective of having all staff complete the 2024 Informational Security Awareness Training before the end of the year. Out of the board's 40 staff, we raised the 75% completion rate to 93%, and the remaining 7% are staff who are on extended leave of absences. So we'll have them complete the training as soon as they return. Also, as Melissa Gear reported earlier, we are having staff take training for workplace violence prevention plan. It's in line with SB 553. Right now, we're also at 93% completion, and we hope to have it done by the end of July. The wellness program the Wellness Evaluation Committee met on June 3rd. They currently have 2 participants in the program, and they meet every January, June, and October. And the budget will be reported on in tomorrow's meeting when the budget analyst Brendan Vu will be here to present budget documents. We do have the fund condition as well as the revenue report attached there for reference, though. And I think we usually just will go through all the reports and then take questions at the end. So I'll just move on to the.
Actually, can I just ask one
Oh, yeah, of
question? And
course.
it's related to just an abbreviation. Under some of the staff names on the flow chart or
The org chart.
Yes, the org chart. There's FT after some T. I'm assuming T is temporary. Is FT full-time or LT?
FT is a full-time position that may have, and it's being designated as such because part of the position may be paid out of the blanket currently. So I believe.
Yep, that's correct. So you'll see, for example, it says under Laura Bishop, you have FT, but then under the position number, you have a 0.4 in parentheses. The 0.4 is what we have the funding for. The rest of that position is paid for out of the blanket. So it indicates, so anywhere that you don't see that, you'll, for our other staff, they're all full-time. You only see full-time if there's only partial of it is paid funding, and the other half is through the blanket. And where you see a T for like office technician, that T stands for typing. So because there's office technician regular and there's office technician typing, which is an additional certification that they get, just a classification.
Okay.
And the LT is for a limited term, person who's currently a limited term employee.
Okay. And then on the org chart again, the inspectors, this is, you're going to go over the rest of it, but this isn't fully updated, or is this, because it sounds like there's somebody in Placer County now and.
Yeah, I
some
think
Fresno.
we're actually looking at removing the inspectors and SME, the consultants from the org chart because they don't really report to any of the managers and they're not a state employee, they're contractors. So that number's probably pretty inaccurate. I think it's
Okay.
just a prior iteration of the board chart had them on there, or the org chart had it on there and it's been on there. So we're currently working with OHR to say, do we need to have those on there? Can we remove them? And it looks like we're able to remove them to avoid that confusion.
Great.
Yeah, it'd be really hard for us to keep up with all the SMEs and everything. Like, oh, there's 50, now there's 49.
Yeah, that's coming and going and yeah.
exactly.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem. Good. Okay, so moving on to 17B, we have the examination and licensing report. And I'll just quickly provide, I guess, the overview of these updates from ICVA, the International Council for Veterinary Assessment News. They're starting an assessment grant program on April 1st, 2024. And I'm not going to give too many details on what the actual program is because you can read them in the report. They're also taking on progress test volunteers for a new test they're developing and entering a new phase for 2024. And then from the American Association of Veterinary State Boards, we have the North American Veterinary Team Delegation Survey, which began on June 19th, 2024. And for licensing updates, we have, I'll give you some information and the rest is broken down further, but the board applications received, we saw a decrease of roughly 6% when comparing FY 22-23 to 23-24, and that breakdown's below. For registrations, licenses, and permits issued, we saw a decrease of 9% when comparing 2023 to 23-24, 22-23 to 23-24. And we have the breakdown there for you as well. For applications pending, we saw an increase of roughly 42% of applications pending on the last day of the fiscal year when compared to FY 22-23 to 23-24. And the licensing population saw an increase of roughly 5% as well when comparing FY 22-23 to 23-24. Lastly, California implemented recognition of the Federal Service Member Civil Relief Act via Senate Bill 143, which went into effect on September 13, 2023. SB 143 requires California to recognize out-of-state licenses, registrations, and permits issued to members of U.S. Armed Forces and their spouses for the same license type issued within the state. For FY 23-24, the board only received and recognized the program. We have the licensing stats attached as attachment 1. And the link at the bottom should take you to the board's page for application processing times. So if that was confusing just based on the link there. Thank you.
Okay, I'm probably the only one that has questions about all of these. I was just wondering, I was a little confused about applications pending versus the processing time. It seems like it's a very quick processing time. So within a 10-day period, there's 73 veterinarian applications that are coming in and pending, or what is the, like, how are that many pending when we're like, seems like we're processing them that quickly, or is that just?
Well, when it comes to pending, it's kind of like a snapshot in time on the last day of the fiscal year. So, I mean, there could be a number of reasons why it's looking high at that point. I don't know if there's an influx that came in and then weren't able to be processed before the end of the year that happened, but that's just like on June 30th, that's the number that we had pending. Is that answering the question?
Yeah, and I just wanted to give a little more insight on what the numbers are reporting on the application processing times on our website. Right now, that's only accounting for what's within our control. And so when from the day that the applicant submits their application, if there are things that we are still waiting for on them for, then we sent them a deficiency letter and they still need to get fingerprints, or we send them a deficiency letter because they still have to pass the national exam. That would, what we call, we'll put a milestone onto the application to where that time for them to, some of them to graduate or to pass that exam, it's not going to count against us. So you could have a high number that are pending, but it's not pending within our wheelhouse. So it's not counted to the application processing time. So you'll see a faster time. But what we also acknowledge is that there are applicants who want to know just the average overall from the time that I submit my application. If I still have things that I need to do, how long would it take for the entire process? So we're gonna, it's going to be very similar to what you see in our sunset report, where it reports on complete applications versus incomplete applications, and then give you the processing times there. So we're going to try to give more information, but that's why you're going to see such a disparity in how many we have pending versus that short processing time.
Thank you. I've been wondering about that.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? That doesn't, it just doesn't jive in my head.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I know there is some legislation, whether we get to it or not, but if there's a legislative mandate that we prioritize certain applicants, does that present a potential implementation difficulty for this board?
So over the last several years, there's been a lot of mandates to expedite certain applications. There's several from military spouses. You're going to see the most of those. We also have a mandate to expedite asylum seekers. The bills that came through this session that were not successful were related to race and African Americans and expediting those things. I think one of the things that DCA programs have raised with the concern with the legislature is when you get to the point you're expediting everything, you're expediting nothing. So that's a concern. Right now, what we're finding is our licensing process is actually faster than the expedited military application process, because you have to do additional documentation for your military papers. And sometimes it's harder to provide to get that than just to go through the normal process. But we're doing our best to expedite it. If we have all the stuff, we'll expedite it right away. So that's kind of, there are implementation concerns. There was a lot with the bill that died. We do our best, but I think the overall concern that we're seeing now is, like I said, if you're expediting everything, you're expediting nothing.
Thank you. And if I can just, one other.
Yes, so that was part of the governor's budget, was to do a sweep of vacancies. And right now, we don't know the specifics of how that's going to filter down to boards within DCA. But we're looking at a potential reduction in operations. I think close to an 8% reduction, and then 10,000 vacancy sweep throughout statewide. Again, we don't know what that's going to look like. We're monitoring it closely, and it's definitely something that's of concern for us. We want to make sure that we're filling these vacancies as quickly as possible.
Is there any public comment? All right, moderator, please open it up.
Thank you. I'm opening up, or have opened up, the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment.
And this is for public comment for 17A and 17B.
All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to 17C, enforcement. We have Rob and Patty coming up. Hello.
Good afternoon. Okay, so this, we're presenting the enforcement report. This is going to cover the entire fiscal year since we just finished it. And we'll get started with inspections. So that we ended the fiscal year with 182 inspections.
Excuse me, Patty, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Oh. Scoot over. Is that better? Okay.
Thanks.
We finished the year with 182. And this is closer still? Come on. That's up. Is that better? Okay. Let me just get right in front of it. So this is an improvement from the previous fiscal year where we had just 116. So we also have a new inspector here in the local area, and she goes by Dr. Candy Wu, and she is from Folsom. And she is going to be inspecting the Sacramento area and just the Valley area. And she's a graduate from UC Davis. And she was an associate veterinarian at Monte Vista Small Animal Hospital and Blue Ravine Animal Hospital. And most recently, she was the owner and medical director at Natomas Veterinary Hospital. And she is also going to be wearing two hats, and she's going to also be doing case reviews, and she's going to be a subject matter expert for us as well. So we're very fortunate there that she's willing to do both. Our recruitment efforts continue as we seek to increase the number of inspectors, especially in Southern California, and we still have that need in the Fresno area. So what has been happening is our Southern California inspectors have been traveling all the way to Bakersfield and Fresno to conduct those needed inspections. We are still trying to work with the Office of Public Affairs to create the additional video on what to expect during a routine inspection. So, but unfortunately, due to budgetary concerns, that's been delayed, but we hope to be able to proceed with that soon. And as a part of our continued educational outreach efforts, the next inspection webinar is scheduled for next month on August 20th. And these webinars have been very well received and well attended. And our upcoming seminar is going to feature folks from a presentation from DEA. A couple of their diversion investigators will be presenting on regulations and record-keeping requirements specifically for veterinarians. So we're looking forward to that. And also looking forward to the inspection app that continues to develop. And we continue to work with OIS and Tyler Tech. And the user testing is going to be, as mentioned earlier today, it's going to be starting soon. And the go live date is expected at the end of September, beginning of October.
Right, Patty?
Mhm.
So do we have somebody now? Because I feel like somewhere I read that you guys hired somebody in Fresno, Southern California.
No, there's
So-
still a need.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Right.
I do, but she's in Africa.
We tried.
Okay, so I'll jump onto intake. There's not a ton here, but so the cycle time to assign cases is a little bit above our 10-day target. It's still less than it was last year and then significantly less than it was the year before. But what I noticed in running these cycle times is that it's based on all the cases that we closed during that time frame. And I think as many of you know that we are working on a backlog. Many of those cases are already years old, which means that the intake text now, I mean, even the previous intake text had nothing to do with processing these cases and opening them. And I think a lot of times we were trying to say, hey, let's try and get these cycle times down. Let's try and work on this. But it's not an accurate measurement. So I did run some numbers on what our current team is doing as far as intake cycle times, and they're doing great. So they're below that 10-day cycle time. So the staff we have now, they're able to handle it. And it was kind of unfair because they were, we're looking at, oh, we're slightly above 10 days, and they didn't even get to touch it. So it wasn't fair to say, hey, how can we work on this? Because it was done years before. So I'll probably continue to do that just to let them know how they're doing. The report talks about having, I think it said we've got 21 cases. And basically what we're looking at right now is intake is caught up. So what they're looking at is any cases that we receive are processed right then. So it's not like there's a backlog that they have to process and assign to an investigator. They're working on what we get. So they're all caught up, which is great because we do still have that vacancy, but to dovetail on what Matt was asking about, we have that OT vacancy, but it will be filled. We have somebody who's going to begin on August 1st. So that's one thing checked off the list. And then we'll be able to continue to maintain that cycle time. And I do know that what we have received recently, because Ali, thankfully, has stepped in when we lost our prior intake tech, who had been there for many years, Chang Vang. But he's gotten a lot of PRA requests and various items coming in requesting documentation from external stakeholders. So he's had to work on that, but they've been able to keep up with that intake demand.
I just want to really give kudos to the intake team now. I know ever since I started, and I'm pretty sure fairly before that, I don't know of a time that we've actually been to where we're processing them the same day. I think that's really huge, and I just really want to give extreme kudos to your intake team.
Yeah, no, it is great. That's something that I think we've always mentioned is we want to just, what we get, we take care of, and that's it. And, I think we've talked about it for many years, but obviously that's where we'd like to get for investigation side of it too. But one thing at a time. So one small accomplishment at a time.
Rob, that's a big accomplishment.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and thanks to the intake team.
Okay, moving on to investigations. Staff remains focused, of course, on reducing that complaint backlog. It's slightly decreased during this fiscal year. It's remaining steady at around 3,500 pending cases. Implemented efficiencies have made it possible to cut into that slightly each month. During the last fiscal year, we received 1,873 new complaints. And that's a slight increase from the previous fiscal year. And despite multiple vacancies in enforcement and the lack of SMEs, staff still managed to close a record number of investigation, 2,029 for this fiscal year. So that's over 3 times as many as fiscal year 2021. So that's great. In May, all the boards and bureaus were notified by the Budget Office of an increase to the Department of Justice's rates. So that increase is about 3.75%. So the Budget Office completed an initial estimate of that impact. And at this time, they don't believe that impact is going to result in a need for a fee increase, but it could accelerate the need in the future. So staff will be monitoring that closely.
Next little piece, I think it's been covered a few times. Dr. Getkin mentioned it during the MDC meeting, and then Dr. Sullivan again today. But just a quick update on that subject matter expert program. So we did have that quarterly roundtable. We had it both for our consultants and for our experts, and I think they've been successful for all the occurrences that we've had. It's just a good opportunity for our licensees to come together and talk to each other and field any questions, talk about hypothetical cases. And I think one of the most interesting parts of it is just the scenarios that I know that are brought up. And they say, what would you guys think of this particular, incident, where the pet arrives and this is what happens. And it's, it's like hearing, a bunch of jargon, and it's like, they're all speaking Greek. But it's very good to see that conversation happen. And it is surprising that a lot of times they come to that same kind of conclusion, to where they go through that, in-depth thought process and come to that conclusion. So, I mean, seeing that as an outsider in the respect that I'm not a licensee, gives me a lot of faith in the experts who review these cases. It makes me feel good about the conclusions that they come to, because sometimes, we have to really put a lot of trust in the experts. So having these roundtables, I think, is a really great kind of organic opportunity for them to come together.
Moving on to probation. The probation monitors are currently investigating 49 enforcement complaints against 16 of the probationers. We currently have 1 petition for early termination and 2 for reinstatement that are pending with the probation unit. Since the last update, 5 licensees began probation, and we haven't had any completions. So I have 53 total probationers at this time, 9 of which are old. Matt, did you have anything you wanted to add to probation? Okay. And we had the lawsuit costs in there, but that'll be the last time we see that, since that's done. And other than that, we have staff.
Yeah, just especially for a new member, just wanted to remind all the members that the SPCA case was dismissed back in January. So hopefully all of the costs coming out of that will be resolved at this point.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything coming in months.
That's funny. I was like, I thought that was dismissed, but it was in there, and I'm like, maybe it wasn't. So thank you.
Yeah, that's all we have. If anyone has
Okay.
any questions.
Thanks. Rob, I wanted to ask you about the subject matter expert training program, which is near and dear to my heart, and it's very strange not being a part of all
Right.
of this anymore. I'm like, miss it. I was just wondering, I know at one point we had talked about when I was on the MDC that it might be beneficial to have some sort of like training on how to testify as an expert witness.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's even possible, but has any other discussion on that?
I did receive some feedback from one of our experts about who had experience, like some training on testifying. So I was going to look into that. I was going to reach out to our DAG liaison.
Yeah.
I know she's out right now, but I was going to send her a message. I know we do have another quarterly roundtable coming up. I don't know if she'll be able to prepare something in time, but it's definitely something I think that would be good, because as infrequent as that happens, I think that that's probably in the mind of a lot of our experts, because that's like I hope this doesn't happen, but just in case it does, they want to be prepared for it, or at least take away the the unknown.
Yeah, and I think it also maybe would help as they're writing their reports, if they kind of understood what that might look like, it would help them so that, they would be able to testify well
Right.
when they're defending their reports. So great. And then do you think that, are we still getting the same participation in those programs? Or do you think it's maybe it's too many, like
You're talking about for the quarterly
Yeah.
meetings? I think it has
trailed off a little?
it's probably dropped off a little bit, yeah. I think we do have some of the newer experts who will, if they can, they'll show up, but we do have a lot of I think it's more so the veteran experts who are there, and they try to make time for it every quarter. So I think it's just getting the new ones to show up, and they seem to like it once they do, but other times they're, oh, I'm busy and I can't make it, which is understandable.
Sure. Okay. I think that was all I had. Any other questions? All right.
I just had one information question. What's involved with the probation each time? I mean, I see on the stipulations they have to meet. Is it once a month with most of the people?
So for the most part, the licensee will meet with the probation monitor when the probation starts prior to the effective date to do an intake meeting. They'll go over all the terms and conditions of probation, make sure the licensee understands what's required of them. Then the licensee will be required to submit quarterly reports as a standard term and condition of probation. So those quarterly reports will contain, information on where they're practicing, what kind of practice they're doing, and then depending on the other terms and conditions of probation, they may have other items they have to submit regularly, whether it's monthly or quarterly. For instance, they pay $100 per month for probation surveillance fee, like probation monitoring costs, it's called. So there's different elements, but the probation monitors go over each one and like what the schedule is to turn the documents into the probation unit so that they know how to be in compliance.
So would the same person be doing the monitoring of the records then? Is that a different person?
It's a different person. So they'll have a medical record reviewer. If they have that condition, for instance, that'll be a licensee that is subject to board approval, and that person reviews their records. That's separate from the probation monitor. The probation monitor might have the records, presented to them to verify what the records reviewer is looking at, but that's an independent person selected by the probationer that does that kind of stuff.
I just wanted to say thank you and good job. It's really nice to hear these positive numbers. Like these are huge numbers for the closed cases and for your inspections. And it's really nice to see. I feel like there's light at the end of the tunnel, perhaps, and that all the hard work and effort and the efficiencies and all of that is paying off. And if we could get the ability to do the stipulated settlements, I mean, it really is, it feels like it's coming together, and you guys all asked us to be patient and told us it would get better. And it was like, really? So I just wanted to congratulate you on the success of the program. I mean, I know there's always work to do, and it's hard to be celebratory with 3,800 complaints still
Right.
pending, and we need to keep that in mind. But I still think it's important to acknowledge that. So please thank all of the staff for all of their hard work.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Good job.
Yeah,
Thank you to
seriously.
the-
And I wanted
team.
to echo that and say thank you for leading the teams and doing this, because I don't think it's recognized enough. I think we focus a lot on negatives, and we need to focus on the positives, because you guys have made huge strides, and it's very much appreciated.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Yeah, and we can tell you care too, and that's special. So thank you. I think we're going to take public comment on this one and then go on to the next one. So any public comment? Nope. Moderator, public comment online, please.
Thank you very much. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public has a comment on agenda item 17C, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
All right, Jeff. Moving on to agenda item 17D, outreach. We have Jeffrey Olgwin. Is that how I say your last name?
Very good.
Okay, good.
Usually takes people like 3 or 4 times. So I'm Jeff Ogwin. I'm the admin analyst for the board. I do a lot of the administrative stuff for the board. So for the outreach report, we did send out a notification to our list subscribers about the new edition of the 2024 Practice Act. We do have it available for free on our website. So any licensee that, or public member for that matter, who wants to see our Practice Act can download it and view any section that applies to the veterinary medical field. They can also buy it through LexisNexis if they want to have a physical hard copy as well. In addition, we have the inspector recruitment that we posted out for the Sonoma and Fresno counties. We are desperately seeking to have individuals who are highly qualified apply for those specific areas of California to kind of service the needs of those counties. So we are still actively looking for qualified individuals. If you know anybody, please let them apply. That way we can fill those desperate needs. In May, we did the military personnel and their spouses webinar. Actually, DCA provided that training and information. And basically that training allows potential applicants who have military experience or were a veteran or a spouse of a veteran to gain information on what they need to get expedited processing in California, the specific documentation and the specific requirements to kind of throw their application on the top of the stack in order for them to get licensed a little faster. It's still pretty quick here at VetMed, so maybe just slightly quicker. But yeah, they are entitled to that expedited processing if they have the proper documentation attached to the application. In June, we sent out recruitment for 3 board member positions. We luckily got one to fill the board. We're happy to have you here, Mr. Espinoza. But we are still also actively looking for the 2 other members. One will be a veterinary position appointed by the governor, and the other one will be a public member position appointed by the Senate Rules Committee. So anybody out there would like to apply and meets those qualifications, they are strongly encouraged to apply with the specific entity that oversees that. And finally, to reiterate what's mentioned before, we have also announced the Skill Bridge program, expedited processing. All the applications for the board have been updated as of July 1st, which allows expedited processing for certain military members who are within 6 months of getting their discharge. As long as they have the proper documentation, they can also get expedited processing with the board. And with that, if you guys have any questions, I will be happy to answer.
I always have questions. I'm worse than Christy. Okay, so under the inspector recruitment, I had asked about the Fresno thing. They said no at the last on the last agenda item, but at the end of this paragraph, it says qualified licensees were selected, provided training, and will soon be conducting inspections for the board.
We were hoping by the time.
This was a visualization.
So by the time this memo came out, if you look, it was June 27th. We were hoping to have these people in these positions.
Okay,
a month ago for you, but
okay, that explains it. Thank you.
If you're out there,
all right. Yes, it was the secret. You were using the secret vision board. Any public comment? All right. Moderator, please open it up to those online.
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right. I think we'll save 18 for the end of the meeting in case some other things come up for the future agenda items, and go ahead.
You still have 17E.
Oh, sorry.
Matt's worked so hard on it.
Yeah.
Matt, we're just going to skip you.
Okay. I
Sorry.
feel like I'd accept that.
That's great. We could fill, we have a
Save
little
some time.
Yeah.
Okay.
17E.
Yeah, so I just want to welcome back our old friend, the strategic plan tracker. You're all probably familiar with that from the last strategic plan. We also have the pie charts back at the top, which are looking pretty bleak right now, but they're going to be updated as the tasks and objectives are completed. We've got a way to go, but we'll get there. So the strategic plan is broken down into 5 goal areas: customer service, licensing examinations, enforcement, legislation and regulations, and outreach. VMB management and team leads met with solid staff to develop the strategic plan action items on June 4th, 2024. And the plan now consists of 41 objectives and 185 tasks, so it's quite robust. Staff will be working with various subcommittees of the board, other DCA entities, outside agencies, and independently, depending on the task, to complete the strategic plan objective tasks and objectives as outlined in the tracker and earlier whenever possible. And you can see if you go through it that each objective has several tasks to complete the objective with target completion dates for each of those tasks. Most of them are pending now. We do have a few of them completed. So that's why there's a couple dark green marks on the pie chart there. And you know, I think we're just trying to get break our record from last time, because we had the last strat plan, I think, completed within 2 years. So we have a 4-year plan here, but we're hoping to be done way sooner than 4 years. 3? Okay. We were going for 2 this time, so we did 3 last time. But, you know, obviously we want to get it done as quickly as we can, but we also tried to plan things out so we had enough time to actually meet the goals and not be like never meeting any of our own deadlines. So that's it.
All right. I love these trackers. It's always quite fun. Is there any questions? Right. Public comment? None. Moderator, open that up for us.
All right, I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. And this is comment on agenda item 17E, the strategic plan. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. All right. Well, I think with that, we will recess until tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., I believe. So thank you.